When it comes to electric vehicles, almost all the attention focuses on electric cars, but it could be argued that it's when it comes to commercial vehicles like this that things start to get really interesting. From vans to trucks, from buses to coaches, from taxis to tuk-tuks. Over the next few years we expect everything to be electrified. And while this is an exciting prospect, how can businesses be sure they can transition to an electrified future as seamlessly as possible? Today we're talking to Mitul Malkan, Product Manager for Commercial Vehicles at ERS. So Mitul, can you tell me what your role is and how you work within the team there?
So at ERS we're a specialist motor insurer, and currently we write on a motor-only, broker-only basis. So to put policies on cover with us, it would have to go via a broker. We have a full team of specialist underwriter knowledge, and we underwrite a vast range of commercial vehicles, from specialist modified catering vehicles, but also, more recently, e-couriers, trucks, electric taxis, etc. So it's a big range of commercial vehicles that we underwrite.
So are you seeing a rise in the use of electric vehicles in the commercial space?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're certainly seeing an increasing trend in quote requests coming through to our business. Now, with any sort of innovation like this, it takes time for these things to adopt. We've seen some of the bigger companies will start to invest, and then slowly but surely the smaller companies will start to adopt that thereafter.
Right, because I've noticed, one of the things I noticed was a load of Amazon electric delivery vans on the back of big trucks going down the M5, but it wasn't like one or two, it was dozens.
Amazon is a really good example because they are an innovator, they have this corporate social responsibility, and what they've done is they've kind of set a trend, and if a big company like Amazon invests in this sort of technology, it kind of almost sets a trend, sets a bit of comfort for the general public, for owner-operators, for smaller businesses to try and kind of look into this sort of technology, because there's always this anxiety, if that makes sense. People don't want to always invest straight away for new technology.
So Mitul, do you think that the cost of buying a commercial electric vehicle is something that puts a lot of businesses off?
I mean, there's no doubt about it. They are expensive to purchase, but the thing is that at ERS, we're trying to understand the policyholder's requirement as well as the risk we're covering. So we've actually recognised that the social economic climate is changed. Owning your vehicle outright is quite frankly a thing of the past. There's so many readily available hire purchase agreements, leases, finance options available. And actually what we're seeing is that these financial incentives are making it a lot easier to purchase the vehicle outright. Before, what you do is £40,000-50,000 would be an upfront cost to buy the vehicle. Now you're talking about a small deposit with manageable monthly payments. So that's absolutely changed the game altogether for electric vehicles.
Right, because I'm sort of aware of that for private vehicles, and that's clearly a big trend in private vehicles. I never really thought about it for commercial vehicles, so it's a similar system, similar arrangement.
So EDF have done so many case studies where they've actually said the cost of running a petrol vehicle would be roughly about 9 pence per mile, and then as opposed to an electric vehicle where they're talking 4 pence per mile. So I mean the savings, once you get through the hurdle of purchasing the vehicle in the first place, are absolutely noticeable.
Well, what kind of changes have you made to the policies that you offer companies to encourage them to start using EVs?
Thing is, with us at ERS, we want to actually encourage the smaller businesses, our policyholders, to adopt this technology, electronic vehicles, etc. And what we've done is we've actually one of the fewer insurers that are outright quoting for these policies in the first place. As with any new technology in the market, you'll have fewer insurers quoting to begin with, and then slowly but surely more and more insurers will kind of jump on board. So we're kind of out there, we're really encouraging, we're trying to quote actively. On top of that, there's an insurance policy is a contract. Between the insurance company and the policyholder. You'd have to own the vehicle that you've got the interest in insuring.
Right.
Whereas what we've done is we've recognised that not everyone's going to own this vehicle. They're going to be leasing the vehicle, there'll be finance options available. So we've adapted our acceptability to cater for the fact that the vehicle might be leased. Then there's the cables. So for example, the vehicles, it's different. The charging cable element just didn't exist in other vehicles.
Yeah.
Now we've got to think about what happens if someone trips over the wire whilst you're charging your vehicle. We've had to put this into our coverage.
But then there's breakdown cover as well, because I mean, if I'm in my car and it breaks down, it's annoying and it's depressing, but it's not necessarily my livelihood depends on it. If you're in a commercial vehicle that breaks down, you really want to get it sorted.
Absolutely. I mean, there's two parts to it. There's the recovery element, because it's a business that needs the vehicle, but then there's the electric vehicle consideration in its entirety. So what we've got at ERS is we've got a supplementary breakdown product that we can essentially get cover for our policyholders, just to make sure that they've got the right coverage, recognising the fact that it's an electric vehicle. The breakdown companies and our partners will need to know what to do with the vehicle. It's a whole different experience compared to recovering a non-electric standard vehicle.
Yeah. So are there any other reasons why big or small businesses are turning to EVs? Have you heard why they're choosing to?
I think there's that economic business aspect which we've discussed, but there's also this social element. There's this corporate social responsibility, there's this emissions consideration, phrases such as carbon neutral or zero emission become more and more readily used at this moment in time. Businesses are just more concerned about their carbon footprint now than they've ever really been before. Yeah. So these are the other considerations that these businesses are making alongside just the pounds and pence conversations that they would normally have.
So where are you seeing the kind of biggest growth then in the commercial sector with EVs?
As it currently stands, it's really in the street food element, it's the catering sector that's seeing the most growth, because these vehicles are normally retrofitted, etc. And when they're doing these modifications to do the catering equipment, most policyholders are actually doing the electric consideration alongside. But it's not just that, it's also the static element. People think, is my vehicle static? So if you think about vehicles that are parked on the roundabouts with the billboards, the advertisements, we've seen a lot of them praising the NHS during the pandemic, for example, because they're parked up. These are, again, not used for long distance travelling. They're really good suitability for the electric vehicle aspect of it. We've had some really interesting case studies. We've had one policyholder who bought a modified electric milk float, and then they kind of then tweaked it and amended it to then use it as a vehicle to deliver food and shopping supplies to people who were vulnerable during the pandemic.
Wow.
So some really good news stories coming out of it. It's not just about that business profit element.
And then I suppose if you've got a catering van, you need power in it. I mean, you probably could do quite a lot of it off the batteries in the vehicle as well if you needed to.
Absolutely, and with the pandemic, I think it's probably quite topical, because where the income for the majority of these policyholders has been compromised, really, what do they do? They start thinking about, what are my expenses? Where can I make savings? And can I do something to make my business a little bit more leaner to be able to make sure I kind of see this period through?
So you've talked a lot about catering, Mitul, but what about the sort of wider commercial vehicles?
I mean, things like trucks, for example. Originally you would look at a truck and you think, that's quite a long way away from being fully electric. But surprisingly, Mitsubishi have already shown early signs of innovation. They've got the e-Canter Fuso, for example. It's like your 7.5 ton, you think about your kind of Luton van sort of equivalent, and they've already started making electric versions of that. So we're seeing early green shoots in the transportation truck space. Courier, for example, where before it used to be a courier driver would be doing long distances from, all the way from the airport strip all the way down to the end user. Now we've got distribution centres, warehouses being introduced, and as a consequence, the amount of mileage the courier driver would have to do is a lot less.
Right.
They're operating in a small radius. They can go electric, and so we are seeing some electric vehicles in the courier space, and not to forget the taxis, of course. These ones where they're not modified post-purchase, they're modified before they've even been bought. They're actually purpose-built electric taxis that are being used, and they really are picking up in interest. They're picking up, you see a few in the city, you're seeing more and more charging points available to support them. So it is picking up outside of just the catering sector.
Yeah. So what does this mean for insurers then, and why is it important for brokers to work with specialist insurers like ERS?
I think primarily it's all about making sure you've got the right cover. Insurance is important when the customers need it the most, which is at the point of claim, and therefore making sure you've got the correct form of cover is first and foremost, the most important kind of criteria here. Thereafter, it's that recognition that it's not just a vehicle, it's the policyholder's livelihood. Certainly in the commercial space, without the vehicle, they can't run their business, they can't go about their day-to-day jobs. So it's the livelihood, the correct form of cover, and more importantly, the fact that as a specialist motor insurer for us, we're actually able to tailor the cover to suit your requirements. It's a bespoke form of cover. It's not just a standard one-size-fits-all package, and I think that's what really makes a difference here for brokers.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you so much, Mitul. I think we can see now that the future of the commercial sector, not only one, is it going to grow, but two, there's so many benefits for all of us, regardless of our occupations or what we're doing. Benefits for the businesses that do it, and there's also benefits for us walking along the street. When an electric van goes past, it's nicer than a diesel one. Anyway, thanks very much, Mitul.
No problem.
Great.
Thank you. Cheers.